Each July, large retailers such as Target and Walmart start to phase out the outdoor sections of their stores, erasing any signs of summer by slipping in racks and racks of items that signify the beginning of back to school. There's your usual items, such as pens, papers, and notebooks. Then the college section starts with assorted sizes of storage bins, mini fridges, sheets, towels, comforters, you name it. It's out in the aisles along with scores of parents and their young adult kids in tow, picking out items that will make that cinder block dorm feel more like their childhood bedroom rather than a stark prison cell. No doubt, the parents of Kyle Quinn felt the same way in the summer of 2007 as they, along with other parents, were frantically getting their kids off to college. For many, heading off to college is their first taste of freedom, their first sip of alcohol, or their first fraternity or sorority party. It's the chance to be out on your own and away from parental rules, supervision, and curfews. It's also the first time new students have to juggle a busy schedule of bouncing back and forth to class, the dining room, their dorm, meetings, library, sports, etc. It takes some time getting used to, but busy as they are, most college students come to appreciate the freedom they have to manage their own time. For Denise and Leo Quinn, their fears about Kyle attending Kutztown were mild, since Kyle's older brother Dennis attended the same school. Unlike parents who drive away from their young freshman child in tears, Leo and Denise Quinn had somewhat of a different outlook. Sure, they were going to miss having Kyle around, but again, Kyle had his older brother Dennis to show him the ropes and be a shoulder to lean on as Kyle navigated his year at Kutztown University. Both Leo and Denise felt Kyle would be safe at the small campus at Kutztown University, which is home to over 12,000 students. 2 weeks, 14 days, 1,209,600 seconds, 20,160 minutes, 336 hours is the exact time Kyle Quinn had to enjoy his first official semester at Kutztown University. Unfortunately, Kyle would never have the opportunity to spend more time with Dennis on the campus, nor would he have been able to complete his studies as a history major, nor would he be able to celebrate his achievements and other milestones in life. On a random early Thursday morning, in the early weeks of September 2007, Kyle's life was cut short by a group of men who decided that picking a random fight with a complete stranger would fulfill their fantasy of showing off their immature macho abilities. Little did they know that their cowardly actions would end up with 3 out of the 5 friends behind bars for a very long time. A close-knit family and community left shattered, and continually asking the question, why? You're listening to Departed in Pennsyltucky, first semester, the case of Kyle Quinn. I'm alone in a forest. Rays of light stream through the trees. Week-old snow is dirty and wet under my feet. I'm lost, so I stop to rest and think. I wonder how I got here and if I'm safe. I hear a bird sing me a tune and I cry. Not from sadness, but from joy. My little songbird has given me hope. So I rise from beneath the tree where I was resting and continue on, lost, but not alone. I have my little songbird and a new hope for better days. He sings me tunes until the forest comes to a clearing. I bid him farewell with a smile and a wave. I have found the path home, and now I am safe. The above poem was written by 19-year-old Kyle Gregory Quinn, born April 6, 1988. Kyle was the son of Leo and Denise Quinn, brother to Dennis, and sister to Caitlin, beloved nephew, grandson, friend, and co-worker. Kyle has been described as a kind and gentle soul, well-balanced, loved by his family, and had much love for his family. He was non-confrontational, and he was someone who wouldn't start a fight with another person. But yet, he would be the one who would stand up and help anybody if they really needed it. Like a typical high school teenager, Kyle usually started his high school mornings by hitting the snooze button numerous times, while his sister Caitlin was assigned the task of making sure Kyle awoke. And more often than not, she had to usually drag him out of bed. His usual routine would be crawling over his laundry, eating granola bars for breakfast, putting on dirty clothes, and finally, telling his mother Denise he loved her as he got into his car and drove himself to school. An avid outdoorsman, Kyle's interests also included soccer, karate, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, and the movie Easy Rider. Kyle was especially good at playing the guitar, which made Kyle's older brother Dennis envious of Kyle's natural talent. His main focus was writing poetry, and his poems often looked at life's hardships and how one could get through it. After graduating high school, Kyle started off his freshman year of college, commuting to Pennsylvania State University in Abington, Pennsylvania. Not sure exactly of what he wanted to do, Kyle chose to live at home his first year at Penn State Abington. A self-professed homebody, Kyle didn't want to go away his first year, not sure exactly of what major he intended to study. But at some point during his first year at Penn State University, Kyle changed his mind and took a summer course at Bucks County Community College and decided to transfer to Kutztown University, the same college that his older brother Dennis attended. His intended major was history and talked about being a professor. Kyle could hardly wait, having arrived on campus 2 weeks earlier to set up. Kutztown University, one of Pennsylvania's 14 state schools, is located in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, a quaint borough with an overall area of roughly 1.6 square miles. The university campus is in a picturesque part of the rural Pennsylvania Dutch community. Local residents, as well as college students, are privy to the beauty and rustic elegance that is seen here on a daily basis. Kutztown University is the best of both worlds. It is surrounded by shops, restaurants, bars, and grocery stores. A little further down Main Street, and you are suddenly surrounded by fields and farms. This gives it a good mix of busy and calm. The borough provides students and visitors alike with many unique events, such as farmers markets and annual festivals. During the summer months, leading up to the start of the college semester, Kyle, his older brother Dennis, and sister Caitlin all worked at the Five Ponds Golf Club restaurant, where Kyle was a dishwasher and kitchen worker. The close-knit siblings worked the past 3 summers together, and when the season was over, Kyle and Dennis stopped by to get their final paychecks before leaving for Kutztown. The van was all packed. The staff had teased Kyle that he's not a little boy anymore and he's going off to college. Staff had described Kyle as being enthusiastic. It was the last time his former co-workers saw him alive. Within his first few days at Kutztown, Kyle settled in fast, and he was happy to be there, and had lots of friends there, including his older brother Dennis. He and Dennis were making plans to hike the Appalachian Trail that next spring, and both had started to gather camping supplies for the more than 2,700-mile hike from Georgia to Maine. It was a trip both brothers had been looking forward to. The 2 brothers were extremely close, more like twins, often finishing each other's sentences. To prepare for the trip, Kyle and Dennis and a few other friends took a 1-day hiking trip to the Pinnacle in Berks County. September 6th, 2007 was just like any other Thursday for college student Kyle Quinn. Kyle's early morning started off by attending his classes. Then, the later afternoon was spent enjoying a live band performance on campus. Later, he joined a group of friends at his older brother Dennis's apartment. The small group that had gathered had talked about the first weeks of school while they listened to music. Typically, Thursday nights are the universal party night for anyone that attends a 4-year institution. Why Thursday nights? Well, for those attending college, Thursdays are the start of the weekend. A majority of colleges don't offer that many classes on a Friday, and some students leave campus and head home for the weekend. The main street in Kutztown is lined with bars, off-campus student apartments, and restaurants, and is normally the busiest night of the week. Because of the party atmosphere on Thursday nights, Main Street in Kutztown attracts non-students from the surrounding area, and by doing so, it attracts problems. Around the same time that Kyle was hanging out at Dennis's apartment with friends, another group of friends about 30 miles away, 5 men who had known each other since their high school days at Allen High School, Terry Klein, his brother Kenny Klein, Timothy Gerhardt, Derek Hauser, and Andrew Weber, were planning on getting a head start on the weekend as well, and decided to drive to neighboring Kutztown University for a guys' night out. The group of longtime friends planned to go to Shorty's bar in Kutztown to celebrate Terry's 24th birthday, as well as to take their minds off a close friend who was buried just a week prior. Terry and Kenny were brothers who were raised by a single mother, Tina. In high school, Terry played varsity basketball along with Derek Hauser for Allen High School, having graduated in 2004. Terry had a young daughter, and although he had worked a number of various jobs, he was currently unemployed. His brother Kenny dropped out of Allen High School after the 9th grade and was employed as a cook and was working towards his GED. Derek agreed to drive the 5 men in his vehicle, and on the trip to Kutztown, the 4 passengers passed around a bottle of Yukon Jack. It took turns taking shots from the bottle of liquor. The group arrived at Shorty's bar between midnight and 12:30 a.m. on the morning of September 7th, 2007. Once inside the bar, the group split up with Derek and Andrew hanging out at one point of the bar, and Terry, Kenny, and Timothy staying at the other end. When the bar closed at 2 a.m., all 5 left the bar and mingled outside for a while. The 5 men congregated outside near Derek's car. Terry, Kenny, and Timothy were hyped up and excited, and Terry wanted to start a fight with someone just for the sake of fighting. It was then that Terry began talking to a random guy, discussing who was tougher and how many fights each other had been in. Not wanting the fight to escalate any further, Derek intervened, and at his insistence, the remaining 4 friends, Terry, Kenny, Timothy, and Andrew, got into Derek's car to go home. Once underway, however, Terry began accusing Derek of disrespecting him and was angry with him for asking the group to leave early and challenged him to a fight. Terry then jumped out of Derek's car, took off his shirt, and urged Derek to get out of the car to fight him. Derek, again being the voice of reason, was able to calm Terry down and convince him to get back into the vehicle. As the group resumed their journey home, Timothy spotted a group of 3 individuals on Main Street on the sidewalk speaking to one another. Timothy suggested that if they wanted to start a fight, they should provoke one of these 3 people, which consisted of 2 men and 1 female. Terry, Kenny, and Timothy told Derek to stop the car, at which point the 3 men got out of Derek's car and said, "Let's fuck somebody up," and approached the 3 individuals. Derek and Andrew drove around the corner and parked near the intersection of Main and Noble Streets. Meanwhile, Terry, Kenny, and Timothy began to aggressively accuse the 3 individuals of making derogatory statements to them. The female in the group claimed that Terry, Kenny, and Timothy were yelling and getting close enough to her to make her feel threatened. When a police car drove down a nearby alley, someone yelled, "Cops!" Terry, Kenny, and Timothy left the scene and walked towards Derek's car parked on Main Street. The time was about 2 a.m. when Kyle left his brother's apartment and started to make the 1-mile walk back to his dormitory at Bonner Hall. Kyle was talking on his cell phone when he was confronted by Kenny, who was urinating on the sidewalk. As Kyle was walking by, Kenny asked Kyle to whom he was speaking to, and when Kyle responded, "Not you," and with that, Kenny grabbed Kyle's cell phone out of his hand and threw it into the street. It was then that Terry, Timothy, and Kenny then surrounded Kyle and began yelling at him. Eventually, Terry threw a punch at Kyle, and in the middle of the fight, Timothy picked up a table leg, which he found in the vicinity, and swung it with great force, striking Kyle on the left side of his face. Kyle then fell to the sidewalk, bleeding profusely. After Kyle fell to the ground, Kenny and Timothy got into Derek's car, but Terry continued to stand over Kyle's body saying, "I don't hear you talking anymore, bitch," and finally calling Kyle a pussy. When Terry finally returned to the car, he, Kenny, and Timothy encouraged Derek to drive away. As Derek looked into his rearview mirror, he saw a police officer at Main Street at a traffic light. Terry then said to Derek, "D, just leave." However, before they could flee, Police Officer Corporal Paul Cleary of the Kutztown Borough Police Department pulled alongside Derek's car and blocked their escape. Within minutes, additional police officers arrived at the scene, and each of the 5 men were taken into custody. Kyle was pronounced dead at 3:36 a.m. at Lehigh Valley Hospital. Scott Grimm, the coroner, stated that Kyle died as a result of blunt force trauma to the head. The blow tore open a cranial artery, causing Kyle's death. Preliminary toxicology tests showed that nothing in Kyle's system contributed to his death. Date: September 7th, 2007. Location: Berks County District Court. The following day, curious bystanders lined the sidewalk outside the district court in Reading, Pennsylvania. All wanted to get a glimpse of the three men who were being accused of the senseless and beating of the beloved young college sophomore. Timothy and co-defendant brothers Kenny and Terry were arraigned on first and third degree murder and conspiracy charges the following day before District Judge Gail Greth. District Attorney Mark Baldwin charged all three with conspiracy, which meant all three could be convicted of first-degree murder in Kyle's death, even if there is no proof they actually struck him. In addressing the judge, Mark Baldwin stated that the three friends singled out Kyle for no reason other than senseless violence, calling it a willful, deliberate, and premeditated murder. The three friends sat shackled with their heads down throughout the grim proceeding. Seats in the courtroom were filled with lawmen, media, and about 20 of Kyle's family and friends. At their arraignment, all three men bowed their heads and sobbed, barely speaking. Terry vomited repeatedly into a bucket, while his younger brother Kenny smiled and gave the middle finger to the crowd outside. When the judge asked the three men if they could read and write, Terry said he couldn't read, but somewhat understood his rights. District Attorney Mark Baldwin said the fatal blow was caused by a heavy wooden table leg that Timothy had admitted using to hit Kyle. According to the district attorney, the table leg was the only weapon used in the attack. He said, other than fists and feet, it was the only weapon, and that the table leg was going to be sent to an FBI laboratory to be further analyzed. The conspiracy charge stemmed from in part of statements given by two of the trio's other two friends, Derek and Andrew, who were in the car with the three, but did not get out of the car to confront Kyle. Derek and Andrew were not charged since they never exited the vehicle and were cooperating with police. Initially, all three men denied any involvement in the attack on Kyle, but Terry eventually admitted that Kenny approached Kyle and exchanged words, after which Kenny took Kyle's phone and threw it across the street. Terry also confessed that he began arguing with Kyle in order to protect his brother Kenny, but acknowledged that Kyle did not strike any of the three men and that he saw Timothy pick up an object and hit Kyle with it. He stated that Kyle fell to the ground and that he, Kenny, and Timothy got into Derek's car to flee. The judge ordered the three defendants returned to the Berks County Prison without bail. When the three men were initially arrested, they were all jailed under $10 million each. The bail was later revoked when the investigation revealed it was a homicide case. Terry and Timothy cried as they left the courtroom, and Kenny showed no emotion. Date: September 12th, 2007. Location: Christopher House, Kutztown University. On September 12th, 2007, Kyle's family and friends took turns remembering him at his memorial service in Christopher House, Kutztown University's Catholic ministry, where more than 200 mourners packed every square foot of the chapel and lobby. Earlier that week, hundreds of people honored Kyle's memory by lighting small candles in a white tent erected on Alumni Plaza at Kutztown University called Candles for Kyle. Students and staff members filed in standing shoulder to shoulder in the sparsely decorated chapel and filled all the available chairs. Most did not know Kyle. Some say they knew his older brother Dennis, and many more said they didn't know either one of the brothers, but had never felt closer as a university community. Mourners recited psalms out loud and the Lord's Prayer and shed tears when Kyle's family and his longtime girlfriend Emily Hughes read a poem entitled Love. Kyle wrote it especially for Emily, his first and only love. When I Was Young was a poem that Kyle had written, which he then turned into a song that he performed for his older brother Dennis. Another poem, Under the Trees, Kyle referred to his cousin Brian as Buddha, and in the poem, the two share a sandwich under a tree. Kyle's thoughtful writings were just some of the numerous poems that were read at the memorial service. The booklet contained hundreds of Kyle's original poems, which were printed by Kutztown Press and distributed after the service. Date: August 8th, 2008. Location: Berks County Courthouse. On August 8th, 2008, Timothy Gerhardt, the man responsible for delivering the final hits to Kyle with a 3-foot wooden table leg, pled guilty to third-degree murder and conspiracy to commit aggravated assault. The hearing lasted approximately 2 hours, and when it was Timothy's turn to speak, he apologized to Kyle's family as well as his own, saying, "A night of overindulgence was partly to blame for his actions." He added, "I didn't mean to hurt so many people. I do not know why God allowed this to happen. For the past year, I have thought of your son every day and will for the rest of my life." Timothy's mother, Maureen, took the stand in her son's defense and apologized to Kyle's family. She said her son was turning his life around and testified that he prays for the Quinn family from his prison cell. Timothy was sentenced to 24 years imprisonment for the conspiracy to commit third-degree murder conviction, as well as a concurrent term of 20 years probation for the crime of aggravated assault. Timothy's sentence was due to the fact that prosecutors stated that Timothy had never shown remorse by smiling for a photo taken after his arrest in the beating death of Kyle. They also added that Timothy had a prior criminal history and had several chances to turn his life around. For reasons unknown, Timothy asked if he could keep Kyle's family impact letters that were read as part of his sentencing. The judge granted that request and allowed him to take those to prison with him. Leaving the courtroom, Kyle's mother, Denise, said, "What he did to Kyle was cold-blooded and cruel. No one deserves to die that way." Timothy Gerhardt is serving out his sentence at State Correctional Facility in Cole Township, Pennsylvania. Date: November 10th, 2008. Location: Berks County Courthouse. Citing a lack of evidence, prosecutors dropped first-degree murder charges against the two brothers. However, during the 4-day trial of brothers Terry and Kenny Klein, District Attorney Jonathan Kurland painted both Terry and Kyle as drunk and looking to hurt anyone they encountered. According to testimony, the men drove from Allentown to Kutztown to celebrate Terry's birthday, and after a night of drinking, agreed to beat someone up. He added that Kyle was murdered due to the assault that the brothers started, and the only reason Kyle could not defend himself is because he was surrounded by Terry, Kenny, and Timothy. On the stand, Derek Hauser, who was the key prosecution witness, omitted details of his initial statement to police. Initially, Derek told police he saw Terry yelling and waving his hands before Kyle was fatally beaten. But during the second day of testimony in the Klein's trial before Judge Paul Yatron, Derek did not tell the panel he saw Terry punch someone. Derek said in the September 7th, 2007 statement to police that Terry throws a punch as he throws his hands. "I'm looking through my side view mirror, looking to see if the cops are coming." Derek described seeing someone being hit, but not sure who that person was. Assistant District Attorney Jonathan Kurland held up a typed police statement that Derek had signed. He asked him if when he gave that answer, Was he telling the truth? Yes, Derek responded. Derek said he saw someone lying on the ground when Terry, Kenny, and Timothy returned to his car. When asked if he saw Terry punch Kyle, he answered no, and also added he didn't see Kenny fight with Kyle, as well as not seeing a weapon at the scene. Derek testified that in a statement to police with Terry's attorney, Jack McMahon, present, he said he saw Terry gesture his hands in a way that looked like he was going to fight. On the stand, Derek testified that he, Andrew, and the Klein brothers and Timothy went to a Kutztown tavern at 12:30 a.m. to celebrate Terry Klein's 24th birthday. The group of 5 got in Derek's car after the tavern closed at 2 a.m., and it was that time Terry accused Derek of disrespecting him by wanting to leave the bar early. Derek stated that Terry sounded really upset with him and again was trying to disrespect him. He added that Terry began screaming at him and that he wanted him to go out and Derek just wanted to go home. He said Terry got out of the car for a short time, then came back in. It was then that both Derek and Terry made up. Moments later, Timothy then told Derek to stop the car so that they could fight 3 kids who were on the corner at West Main Street and Noble Street. Then Timothy said, "Let's go fuck somebody up." Derek and Andrew stayed behind in the car due to the fact that Derek was starting to get tired and just wanted to go home. Asked why he didn't tell the trio to get back in the car, he added that he wasn't going to keep telling a bunch of grown men to get into a car over and over again, and wasn't about to leave them 45 minutes away from home. Derek could not see what was happening, but heard yelling. Timothy and Kenny got back into his SUV, and in the side view mirror, Derek saw Terry standing over a young man in shorts and sandals. Derek said he then drove up the street and parked a block away. It was then that Terry, Kenny, and Timothy jumped back into his car, ordering Derek to go. Terry shouted obscenities out the window at Kyle, ordering him to get up. It was then that a Kutztown police cruiser pulled up behind them, eventually then pulling them over. Eric Dowell, Kenny's attorney, argued that there was no evidence that Kenny assaulted or even touched Kyle, adding that Kyle doesn't have the criminal liability for the murder that Timothy committed. Terry's attorney, Jack McMahon, agreed, adding that Timothy hit Kyle without knowledge, request, or encouragement from the 2 brothers. Police Corporal Paul Cleary testified that he was in a marked patrol car when he noticed a body on the ground next to an SUV. Terry was standing next to where Kyle had fallen. He added that Terry stepped over Kyle's body, where there was a large pool of blood. As he approached the SUV, Terry got into the back seat of the car, and Officer Cleary noticed the brake lights come on as if it were going to back up, although he did his best to box in the SUV with his police vehicle. Officer Cleary testified that he drew his gun and ordered the 5 men out of the car, but 3 of the guys were trying to walk away. Describing the scene as volatile, Terry, Kenny, and Timothy were agitated, uncooperative, and evasive, stating they knew nothing about Kyle, who was several feet away, bleeding on the sidewalk. Dr. Sarah Lee Funkley testified that an artery at the base of Kyle's brain was torn, resulting in a massive bleed that led to his death. She also stated he had scrapes on his arm and knee that probably occurred when he fell, and scratches that appeared to be grab marks on his left wrist. According to her, no other blow contributed to Kyle's death. Although prosecutors say Kyle got the scratches when Kenny started the confrontation by grabbing Kyle's cell phone, there was no DNA from Kyle found underneath from Terry or Kenny's fingernails. In his closing arguments, Eric Dowell, Kenny's attorney, argued that emotion tells you to punish Kenny because he was mean to Kyle. The facts, however, require you to find Timothy Gerhardt, and Timothy Gerhardt alone, responsible for the blow that killed Kyle Quinn. Jack McMahon, Terry's lawyer, insisted that Terry wasn't responsible for what happened. He stated that Terry was, yes, drunk and obnoxious, but should not be held responsible for the crime. He said, "Is he guilty of playing a fool and being rude and obnoxious? Yes, without a doubt, but that is not a crime." The Berks County jurors deliberated for 5.5 hours, and although they acquitted the brothers of the aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and third-degree murder, they did, however, find them guilty of aggravated assault, conspiracy to commit aggravated assault, and conspiracy to commit third-degree murder. Some friends and family members of the brothers wept as the verdict was read. While Kenny wiped tears with his jacket, his brother Terry remained stone-faced. On the other side of the packed courtroom, there was relief, but no joy. Although pleased with the verdict, Kyle's mother Denise said, "It's not going to change anything. Kyle is still gone, and always will be." Date: November 20th, 2008. Location: Berks County Courthouse. On Friday, December 19th, 2008, both Terry and Kenny were sentenced to 20 to 40 years in state prison. Both Terry and Kenny offered tearful apologies to the family of Kyle. Kenny apologized to Kyle's family by stating, "My deepest thoughts and concerns go to the Quinn family, all their friends, and Kutztown University. I am not the evil person I am made out to be." Terry, who had a young daughter at the time, said he couldn't imagine losing a child and had asked the Quinn family to forgive him someday. However, the judge was not impressed by the brothers' apologies, saying he was not convinced that they were sorry for their roles in Kyle's murder, other than it landed them in jail. He added that both of their intentions were to hurt someone, and that was just frightening to everyone in the court. Emily Hughes, Kyle's girlfriend of over 3 years, stated Kyle loved to hike and planned to become a history teacher or historian. She added that Kyle won't be at the end of the aisle on their wedding day, nor will he be there to teach his children. Caitlin, Kyle's sister, recalled hearing the earth-shattering news that Kyle had been killed, and later talked about seeing his body wrapped in a plastic and white sheet in the hospital. She wanted to hug him, shake him, and have him open his eyes and say, "Ha, just kidding." Leo, Kyle's dad, held a photo of Kyle's tombstone and cried in court, thinking about how he will never hear Kyle sing songs around the campfire, nor do the things that made people laugh. He ended his statement by saying, "I am heartbroken." Denise, Kyle's mother, read one of Kyle's poems, then added that the sentencing doesn't really change anything because Kyle is never coming back. But it does help. To honor Kyle and his memory, his family set up a scholarship in his name, the Kyle Quinn Endowment Scholarship. The scholarship honors Kyle and keeps his memory alive in the hearts of those who loved and knew him. As a tribute to Kyle, the lobby of the Warminster YMCA is dedicated to his memory. As of 2022, the scholarship was in its 16th year, having raised over $164,000 for the Warminster community. The event is an annual sellout with the support of many local leaders, businesses, and residents. Kenny Klein is serving out his sentence at the State Correctional Institution in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. Terry Klein is serving out his sentence at the State Correctional Facility in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. This concludes this week's episode of Departed in Pennsyltucky. I'm your host, Andrea Dudak. Tune in next week for more true crime talk without the Valley Girl squawk.